Because the sad thing is, we live in a nation where twisted, toxic theology is poisoning the politics of this nation. Have you thought about the fact that this week in Utah, a white Christian got killed by a white Christian? And then the next day, HBCUs were under threat. Now, how'd we get in it?
Why were the HBCUs the objects of threats in an incident that took place in the western state of Utah? Blacks are less than 2% of the population. Of the 28,000 undergraduate students at the University of Utah, only 337 were black. 154 were student athletes. There are no HBCUs in or near the state of Utah. Yet 6 schools received direct threats, and others increased security and locked down their campuses. Dr. Haynes' question, how did we get in it, was more than a rhetorical flourish. It is a profound question, and the answer drills down to the core of the American experiment. The most succinct analysis of this critical moment is in the work of the late Dr. George Kelsey. As a professor of religion and philosophy at Morehouse College, Dr. Kelsey became a mentor to a young student named Martin Luther King Jr. Although King was not a strong scholar at the time, Kelsey saw potential in him. And on the strength of his recommendation, King was admitted to Crozer Seminary and then went to Boston University. Aside from the long-standing association with King, Kelsey worked and studied alongside several prominent religious thinkers of his time. This included Reinhold Niebuhr, Paul Tillich, and Benjamin Mays. In 1965, Dr. Kelsey, then a professor at Drew University, published Racism and the Christian Understanding of Man, a book that was so controversial that it was not widely discussed. And the first printing and only printing simply became unavailable. Meeting Kelsey in 1981, I asked if I could buy a copy, and he remarked that even he could not obtain a copy. The opening excerpt from the preface illustrates why the book was so controversial, and today is still difficult to obtain. He wrote, "Racism is a faith. It is a form of idolatry. It is an abortive search for meaning. In its early modern beginnings, racism was a justificatory device. It did not emerge as a faith. It arose as an ideological justification for the constellations of political and economic power, which were expressed in colonialism and slavery. But gradually, the idea of the superior race was heightened and deepened in meaning and value so that it pointed beyond the historical structures of relation in which it emerged to human existence itself. The alleged superior race became and now persists as a center of value and an object of devotion. Multitudes of men gain their sense of the power of being from their membership in the superior race. Accordingly, the most deprived white man, culturally and economically, is able to think of himself as better than any Negro. Now let's be clear. The controversy is not because he used the N-word. Kelsey exposed the aortic artery responsible for distributing the corrupting mythology vital to what we now call white supremacy and white Christian nationalism. At the core is the corrupt mythology that whites are the superior race, divinely appointed to rule and to subjugate all those outside of the white race as inferiors. Charlie Kirk was a racist. He was a practitioner of the faith of racism. As a young man who could not handle the academic rigor of a community college, He dropped out after one semester, failed and foundering his sense of the power of being came solely from his membership in the white race of America. Kirk described Martin Luther King Jr. as an awful man, yet by 26, King had earned his PhD in systematic theology from Boston University. His dissertation was a comparison of the conceptions of God and the thinking of Paul Tillich and Henry Nelson Wyman. At 30, Charlie was still operating with a Sunday school knowledge of the Bible. Charlie Kirk never matriculated at one of the top schools in the world. Yet he would claim that Sheila Jackson Lee, NYU, Yale University, University of Virginia Law School, Joy Heap Reed, Harvard University, Michelle Obama, Princeton University, Harvard Law, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, Harvard University and Harvard Law, that they did not have the brain power, the brain processing power to be graduates. His assessment ignored objective fact that all these women earned degrees from the elite of the elite Ivy League universities. Kirk went back to the default belief of racism, that he as an undereducated, deprived white man culturally and economically is able to think of himself as better than and smarter than any Negro. In the opening chapters of Racism and Christian Understanding of Man, Kelsey delves deeper into the faith characteristic of racism. He states that every faith system has its dogma, that is, a set of principles upheld by authorities of the faith as incontrovertibly true. And this truth is not based on fact or science. This is simply based on belief. Kelsey quotes Ruth Benedict from her book Race, Science, and Politics, and uses her definition of racism. She writes, racism, the dogma, that one ethnic group is condemned by nature to hereditary inferiority, and another group is destined to hereditary superiority. It is the dogma that the hope of civilization depends on eliminating some races and keeping others pure. It is the dogma that one race has carried progress throughout human history and can alone ensure future progress. Here lies the answer to Dr. Haynes' question, how did we get in it? The doctrine of the racist faith is that white race is superior, inherently superior. It is the belief that blacks are inherently inferior and the ultimate outlier group. Purity of the white race has long been a dogmatic racist concern. Most of us are familiar with the one-drop rule. One drop of black blood was enough to assign one to the outlier race. Less familiar is the corollary rule. That one drop is enough to vilify, segregate, humiliate, and ultimately exterminate the inferior outlier group. Therefore, blacks are also the ultimate threat, the enemy of progress, the impediment to success, the ultimate scapegoat, and the ultimate whipping boy, the target of white anger. How did we get in it? We've always been in it. And Charlie Kirk was killed on a Wednesday. The next day, HBCUs were under threat. These colleges were the only place that racists knew large number of black people would be conveniently gathered to receive the brunt of their outrage. Had he been killed on a Saturday, black churches would have been under threat. There's a long legacy of church burnings and church bombings in response to some perceived violation of the racist dogma. This was expressed as that Negro, that black, that colored boy was getting uppity and forgetting his place. How did we get in it? The truth is we've always been in it. From the moment black people arrived in this country, our very presence, marked by achievement, ability, creativity, and existence, has continually posed an existential threat to the entrenched belief system that upholds white superiority as a mythical religion. The sense of threat is not new. It has persisted across generations, shaping both the response to black progress and the ongoing struggle against systemic racism. The writings of Dr. George Kelsey remain deeply relevant today, especially amid the blatant racial hostility that endangers the foundations of American democracy. Kelsey's work provides essential insight into the faith-like nature of racism and its dogmatic hold over society. In the current moment, where open racial animus has surfaced with renewed vigor, Kelsey's perspective helps illuminate how these destructive beliefs continue to influence social dynamics and threaten democratic ideals. His writings need further study. For us, God's sun-kissed people, the urgent question becomes, what legacy are we leaving? What legacy are we creating for our children and for future generations? Will they rise up in voices of gratitude for our contributions, our resilience, our humanity, our steps forward on the path toward justice, equality, true peace, and abundant life? Or will they turn their heads in disappointment that we did not seize the moment and rise to a greater destiny? Those that have ears, let them hear.